today are going to again focus on a art form instead of an artist again. We're going to do two projects today, and they are both going to be in the art form of printmaking. So as you may already know, printmaking just really means taking an image and making it in a way that you can recreate it over and over again. So when we think about printmaking, I think newspapers are often thought about. I have a print of a Frida Kahlo painting in the back. I don't have her painting. It's been recreated. But there are a lot of different forms of printmaking, so I thought I would go over those with you a little bit. So one form of printmaking is etching. And etching is when you take some sort of background, this is a metal plate, and you make lines, you dig into it with lines, or use acid to eat away at it. So you can do etching. There's also wood cuts or linoleum cuts. So that's when you take a sheet of linoleum and you physically dig into it. So literally when you use linoleum, it's called linoleum cuts. And you take a tool and you really dig into it and you make little cuts to make your image. I don't know if you can see, but just like that. It takes some elbow grease. It's not so easy for me to do it in front of the camera like that. But that's another way you can do printmaking. People carve into wood blocks to do printmaking. But the premise is that you make an image and you're able to cover it in paint or ink or something else and press it on paper and make the same image over and over and over and over. So that's what we'll be working on today. We'll look at two different types of printmaking and we will make two different projects. So let's get started. Alright, so the first artwork we are going to look at today is called Duels, in parentheses capital, and it is by an artist named Sarah Morris, and it was created really recently in 2001. It is a part of the Printmaking Now 2000s exhibit that's available for free to view online at MoMA, so I'm going to walk you through how to find her print on there. So if we click on that, it will take us right to this. So since 2000, Printmaking Now talks a little bit about how their stores are closed, but we're enjoying their Museum from Now exhibit. So a little bit about the exhibit, just that it's since 2000 printmaking, contemporary art. And if we scroll down, here's all the images of the installations. There's publications about the artwork, and then you can also see all the artists here and all of the works they have online you can click on. But lastly, we have the installation images. So you can click through these and view the art exhibit. And as you go through, some of them will have this kind of chartreuse green-yellow circle. And if you click on that, it will tell you more information about the art. But we are going to click through because the artwork we are going to talk about today is toward the end of the exhibit. One more. There we go. So I'm going to click on one of these yellow dots and up comes the artwork. So this artwork is by artist Sarah Morris. It was created in 2001, and it's called Duels. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, capital. I'm going to click the Learn More button so we can learn a little bit more about this piece. So the medium is a portfolio of 9 screen prints. We won't talk exactly about screen prints today. We'll talk about different printmaking techniques, but what we do know is that it's 9 different ones. So we can see that this square is made up of actually 9 smaller squares. Now the name was called Duels in parentheses capital, It does kind of remind me of the streets of a capital city, or it kind of has a three-dimensional look to it also, where it kind of looks like buildings maybe down streets. So that's kind of a cool thing. And then it just talks about how this is the 45th edition, copyright, and then other places where you can see this artwork at MoMA. So that's a little preview of how you can kind of make your way through a museum virtually, specifically MoMA online. But this is our artwork that we'll be focusing on today, one of them. And we're going to learn a very simple printmaking technique and recreate something that looks similar to this. Okay, so this artwork by Sarah Morris is made by screen printing. So that's not super accessible to all of us who have a stay-at-home order. But when we think about screen printing, we think about t-shirts, right? Shout out to my Gears and Cheers committee. But this was made through screen printing. So printing is basically just a screen, like a mesh screen. You think about your windows, sort of like that. And then it's covered in an emulsion that's not permeable. And the spots that you do want ink to move through, you leave without the emulsion. And you press ink through it, and wherever the emulsion isn't, the ink goes through onto your fabric or your poster or wood, whatever you want to use as your base. So that's how Sarah Morris made her prints. But today we are going to use cardboard. That's what you'll need. The back of a paintbrush or the back of a Sharpie. Strange, but either of those. And then you'll also need a sponge, and lastly some acrylic paint in 2 or more colors. So that's what we'll need moving forward. Alright, so here we have just a regular piece of cardboard. This is kind of what we're going to be trying to make. So I'll show you how to do it. Take your cardboard. You can take the back of a marker, or I used the back of a paintbrush too, but we are going to just try to make some impressions of some geometric lines. In our cardboard. Now it does take quite a bit of pressure to actually get the indents how you want them. So I'll show you a little bit of how I was doing it. So literally just have to press to make your lines, but it did take some pressure. I'm going to go over it a few times because we really want it to be quite deep. Kind of as deep as you can get it. I'm also going to fold it to try to help us out there. So I'm going to keep going with that. This is, you can kind of see what we're looking for. So pretty deep lines. And I'm just going to make more geometric patterns on it. In Sarah Morris's print, she had some that were really simple and they kind of got more complicated as they went up. I'm just going to do 2 sets of prints right now, but I'm going to do this one that's pretty simple. It's just kind of one triangle with 2 rectangles. So I'm going to make this one a little more complicated. Okay, so now that we have our plate, essentially, the next thing you're going to need is some paint and a sponge. So I have mixed some color here onto just a piece of cardboard. I made my sponge just a little bit damp so it can move a little bit easier, but you're going to want quite a bit of paint, and then you're going to want to just gently spread that paint over your plate. Now if you're traditionally printmaking, this would probably be some sort of ink. But we are at home and we have paint. We don't have printmaking ink. Alright, you really do need to load it up quite a bit with paint. And you can choose to use different colors in areas. Maybe I will do that right now. I'm going to add some darker blue in some spots. Now if you get paint in the grooves, that's okay, but you will want to remove it. So I am loading the section up with quite a bit of paint. I'm just going to go back through with my Sharpie and remove the paint from in those grooves. Now the last thing you're going to do is print it onto paper. So I have a paper here where I did that print, and then I just went over it with some orange paint. But we are going to add to our print with this guy. So I'm going to put it there, and then we are going to press really, really hard on it. If you were actually printmaking, it would go through a printing press, right? Which is super heavy, has a lot of weight. So I'm going to put all my body weight onto it, and we'll see what we have. And we have that little bit of print. I think it went okay. The area where I put the dark blue was definitely showed up a lot more. So these areas, they need more paint on them. I didn't load it up with enough paint. So I'm going to load it up with more paint, and I'm going to press it on again. And I'll press it again on this side, maybe with some different colors, and I'll use that other plate to print over here. And then we'll be done with our first project. Alright, so now I have done my prints 4 different times, I added different colors, and this is my final result. So I did play around with maybe painting in to make the shapes look a little clearer, just because we did just use cardboard and not a traditional printmaking technique. They didn't come out super clear, but you can see some triangle shapes and the rectangle shapes. So I was playing around with just maybe going around them with some paint. And I might do that, I might not. I kind of like the way that it just looks now. And these are how my 2 different plates turned out. As you can see, I've made a sufficient mess I definitely have to clean up. But these are my 2 plates. So that is our little rendition of Sarah Morse's duels. Okay, so our next project is going to be based off of wood cuts. So it's essentially just carving into wood. Now, I don't think that's also the most accessible. If you can do that at home, that's great. You have to have carving tools and sharp knives and things like that. Another type of block cutting would be Lino Cuts, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, where you take linoleum and you simply cut into it with a tool like that to make an imprint, and it's essentially like a big stamp, right? So if I were to put ink on this, what's raised would keep the ink, and what's indented would not hold any ink. So what that ends up looking like is something like this. This is something print my brother bought me for Christmas one year, because I love lino prints. It's one of my favorite things to do and some of my favorite art to see. So that's kind of example of what it can look like. Now, since we don't have linoleum sheets typically at our house, or I'm sure a lot of you don't have carving tools or wood, what we do have are potatoes and knives. So we are going to carve into potatoes to make prints. Our focus is going to be on a simple print that I can't think of the name of right now, but by Roy Lichtenstein, of all people. He is the guy who does the pop art stuff that looks like it's comic books, but he also explored some woodcuts, and he made a really simple kind of graphic face, and we're going to do something similar using potatoes. So let's get started. All right, the first step is to get a few potatoes. So I have grabbed just two and then cut them. So I cut this one in half, so I have two pretty big flat surfaces to work with. And then I took this potato and I cut both ends off, so I have two flat surfaces there to work with. So I am going to start with kind of making a nose for my print. So I've started a little bit here. I just wanted to make sure my butter knife would cut pretty easily, and it does. Kind of cutting out shape of a nose, kind of a sideways nose. And I want this to be very graphic, a lot like our example. So after I don't know if you can really see it too well, but I've cut out kind of a shape that goes like this. What I need to do is cut out around it. So we're essentially just making a stamp. Alright, so this is kind of going to be my nose shape that I'm making for my face, and it was literally as simple as using a butter knife on a potato. So we will set that aside. We do have a nose. So in Lichtenstein's painting he did have a mustache, so I was thinking about doing kind of a mouth and mustache, and then doing maybe like a monocle on one side, just a circle on one side of this, and then making like an eyeball shape on the other. And then we'll cover them in paint and stamp them onto paper to be a face. Alright, so since I have every piece that I want to use for my face, I am going to start putting them together, and as you can see, I've kind of arranged how I want it here. So I have my mouth down here, a little half of a mustache, my nose, an eye, and then on this side I do have like just a circle. I was thinking kind of like a monocle, and then on this side, if I want to put ears, I can stick ears here, or an ear over here. Maybe I won't use the monocle and just use the ear. We'll have to see. So the nice thing about this, again, is that we are printmaking. So we've made something that we can use over and over again to make the same image if we want to. So let's start printing. Alright, so I'm just getting some paint on some paper here, just as my palette. I'm going to spread it around. There's two things you can do. You can either literally use this just like a stamp. Spread this out just a little bit, a little less thick. Set your potato down. So actually this is a good trial because as you can see there's areas that are touching that I actually don't want to touch, and that's around here. So I'm going to have to, actually maybe you can't see because the lighting's not great. So the paint touched around these edges because the edges are sticking out too much. So I'm going to have to cut those away before I make the print. But if I make just a test print over here of the mouth, I'm going to just put the potato down, press it, pick it up. We have that pretty mouth shape. But again, I'll have to cut away some of the sides. So we're going to just kind of test all of these right now. Alright, so there's just a few that I'll have to edit. I think just the eye and the mouth. So basically what I know I need to do is try to get this in some better lighting. There's some paint along the edge, so anywhere I see paint that I don't want paint, you gotta cut it a little bit lower. Alright, so now we can arrange our face on our piece of paper. We did get a little dirty, I'm going to turn it over. Alright, so to kind of anchor the face, I am going to start with the nose because that kind of informs where you put your mouth and where you put your eyes. So I'm going to get my nose filled with ink, or paint in this case, and I am going to press it down. Alright, there's my nose. Do I want it like that or like that? No, I think I'll keep it like this. I do have a little bit. I'm just going to fill this in a little bit with my finger. Alright, now I can focus on my eyes. So, I'm going to get some paint on my monocle. Stick that guy right there. There's one eye. Alright, I'm going to do my other eyeball. That's that. An eye. Our mouth. Our mouth. And then I was just going to use this tiny bit of potato that I cut out as its own little stamp of a mustache, just simply because I forgot to make a mustache, but I wanted to because I feel like that's a very prominent part of Lichtenstein's painting. Really, it's not his painting. I'm used to saying that, but really it was his print. And then last but not least, our guy here, I think he wants an ear by his monocle. Alright, and there is our modern face. Number 1. Alright, hopefully you guys made some really fun prints and had a lot of fun today. I got plenty dirty, so hopefully you did too. That's part of the fun. We will be back next week with another Art with Anna. If you do have a chance, check out MoMA, check out their website, explore it a little bit. If you do find something that you really like that you want to recreate, feel free to message me. I love new ideas. I have a few in my head right now, but I would love some others. And again, if you make any of this art and you post it anywhere or send it to me, tag me, text me, I just love to see them. So I've really enjoyed seeing all of the past ones. And I will see you guys again next week. Bye.